Morning. I'm going to call the December 6th meeting of the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority Board to order. Our first item is our safety briefing. Mr. McLaughlin, can I ask you to make an introduction, please?
Sure. I'm very proud to introduce Lamar Bates. Lamar, if you want to come up. He's our new director of safety. We're very excited to have him. In fact, I made a phone call to someone who used to work with him, and they said didn't have to see in the room. But so we're very excited to have Lamar on, and he's gonna give a safety briefing. All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Now, we are located at 919 East Main Street. We're in the Piedmont Room. First of all, before I get to that, Mike, thank you for the intro. Appreciate that. And Madam Chair, members of the board, good morning once again. It's the proper way. All right. So we're located at 919 East Main Street. We're in the Piedmont Room on the 4th floor. The women's restrooms are located on the west side of the floor. The men's restrooms are located on the east side facing South 10th Street. The primary 911 caller will be John Kostinger. The secondary caller will be Michael Westerman. Primary CPR will be myself, Lamar Bates. Secondary will be Joan Panic. Meet the first responders will be primary Mike McLaughlin. Secondary will be Steve Pitter. All right. If we need an AED, we will call the security desk. All right. The first aid kit is on the table back there against the wall. So also, if we need to evacuate, there are 2 exits. There's one exit there, also an exit behind Ms. Paddock there. If we need to evacuate here. Also, if there's a fire alarm, we will evacuate down the stairwells. That's a must there, down the stairwells. Also, we will assemble at North 9th and Capitol Square. Now, make sure, look to your right, show the person to your right is beside you here, and make sure that they're there. All right, so that's very important as well. Our fire alarms and our stairwells are located near the restrooms. The fire extinguishers are located near the women's restroom. Also beside the closet near the Tidewater room, there's a fire extinguisher there as well, which is the opposite side of the floor in here. All right. For security, if you see something, say something. Contact the main desk or 911. Also, for active shooters, you will either flee, hide, or fight, as you mentioned before. Also, for our participants via remote, make sure that be aware of phishing emails and scams. Also, know your medical emergency and evacuation strategies. All right, do we have any questions?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's have a safe day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bates. We're glad to have you on the team. So before we get started, I'm just going to open us up. I'm going to have Mary Estelle call the roll just to affirm that we have a quorum.
Ms. Bulova?
Here.
Ms. Bushu?
Here.
Mr. Cardwell?
Here.
Mr. Dalton?
Here.
Mr. Delandro?
Here.
Ms. Dorsch?
Here.
Ms. Drake?
Here.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Maestri?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Moses Ned, she's running late. Mr. Payne? Ms. Reinhardt?
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Spoor?
Here.
Mr. Watkins? Thank you.
We have a quorum. Thank you, Mary Estelle. Today is a truly historic day for this body as we contemplate the first 2 big procurements of the authority. So it's an exciting day for the authority. I'm really looking forward to hearing from staff today and recommendations to move those projects forward. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us. Before we get into that, I want to bring up something that's personal in nature. Mr. Spohr brought it up. You try to make a quiet announcement and it ends up in the newspaper. I have let the administration know of my intent to retire at the end of the fiscal year. I have been in public service at the state and federal levels for 31 years. The math does work on that. I've gotten that question a few times this week. But it is something that I've wanted to do for quite some time. I had intended to leave earlier, but stayed on to do the job at DRPT and to stay here at VPRA. I am looking forward to taking a summer off and contemplating what I want to do next in my life. But I have been really grateful to be part of this body, to be part of the transformational improvements in rail in the Commonwealth. And today's a great day. So I'm looking forward. We got a lot of work to do between now and July 1st, right, DJ?
No doubt.
So I'm not letting up until then, but I did want to, CJ well knows, I was texting him at 5 a.m. this morning. But it's bittersweet because I believe in what we're doing here, but it is time for me to go pursue some other things that I'm interested in. So wanted to share that with you. And with that, we will move on our agenda.
Congratulations on.
Thank you. I am very happy and very excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So first, next item on our agenda is public comment. I do not think we have anybody signed up for public comment, but if there are any members of the public in the room that want to offer comment, I will make that available. Seeing and hearing none, we'll move along. Next item on our agenda is approval of the meeting minutes, and these are our minutes from August 30th. Do I have a motion to approve? Of approval. Second. All right, moved by Ms. Dorsch, seconded by Ms. Fulova. Any discussion? Great. Hearing none. Mary Estelle, can you call the roll, please?
Yes, Ms. Bulova?
Aye.
Ms. Bushu? Aye. Mr. Cardwell?
Aye.
Mr. Delandro?
Aye.
Ms. Dorsch?
Aye.
Ms. Drake? Aye. Mr. Hall? Ms. Reinhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Spohr?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving right along, and I think, Mr. Stadler, we've gotten back on schedule. So I'm going to turn it over to you for the executive director's report.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see folks here today. And as Chair DeBolt said, it's an exciting day for us. The executive director's report this month is going to be slightly different than normal. What I have done in the past is at the end of any month where there's no board meeting, I send out a full executive director's report that has all the final numbers, the on-time performance, all of the operating figures. This board meeting is obviously the 6th of December. It's very early. We don't have November actuals yet, so I'm not going to have a full briefing. I'll just give you updates on what's happened since the end of November. Not a whole lot of data, but if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. So first, some administrative updates. Amtrak has finished the interior refresh at Staples Mill. If you look at the left picture there, it really was a fantastic 1970s station, and it served as well until 2023. But on the right, you see it's much more modern, it's clean, it's fresh. We were there last week. It's airy, it's bright. It really is a great improvement. So we thank Amtrak for that. As you see in the caption in the upper right, Staples Mill is one of the biggest stations really on the East Coast. South Washington had over 300,000 passengers last year. So that's a huge win for us. Last Friday here in Richmond, there was the Amtrak annual public board meeting. Amtrak is required under IIJA to do one board meeting in public every year. This year, we were thankful that they chose to hold it in Richmond, showing the strong partnership we have with them. We actually had an expo table before the meeting, and then I made a presentation on TRV at the meeting. It went very, very well. There was also some press on that was very positive for us, so that was good. In conjunction with that meeting, we, in the bottom bullet, we partnered with Z104 in Hampton Roads and the Marine Corps Toy for Tots. We collected over 1,500 toys that we stuffed the train with, and you see the picture there of all of us stuffing all these toys on the train. Just a great opportunity for us to show outreach to the community and help those in needs. It's something that we're absolutely going to do again, but it was just a heartwarming thing. It was good to help those. Haley Glenn of our team just did a fantastic job of coordinating it. It was really a fun time and a good thing for us to do. Update on our Northern Virginia facilities. As you recall in prior meetings, we have signed a lease and we have been in the process of completing the build out. Our Nova facilities are right at the King Street Station, very close to the 3 facilities that are up there. More importantly, they're close to our 4th Street project, close to Long Bridge, much closer than we are to Dayton Shore, and really in the heart of a lot of the work that's happening there in that portion of the corridor. The build out of this space is nearly complete. In fact, Monday is the grand opening and we'll start having our Alexander staffs there in person. I will be there. It's functional space that's going to be both for our staff members and our contractors that are working on these major projects, and we're thrilled to have that done. With that in mind, we have said a number of times in this room that we are here to service the entire Commonwealth. And in doing that, we should have board meetings that are not always in this room. Having this presence in Alexander will further that. So it's not always Patty taking the train saying, how come this person comes 4 miles and I'm 80 miles away? So you'll see that coming. If you want to tour the space, you're welcome to do it. Starting Monday, we'll have folks up there every day. Mike and I will be up there at different times. Joan's there 3 days a week. So we will have a presence there. We're proud of the space. It's a nice space. Thanks to the timing of our space acquisition, we got a very good deal on it, knock on wood, just like we did here. So it's another positive step forward for us. I would be remiss in any of these presentations if I did not go through the FY24 AIP goals. These are the goals, you've seen them before. I'm not going to go one by one. We are in pretty good shape on all of them. Ridership, we're in good shape. Cost recovery so far, we're slightly behind. You may have seen in the executive director's report that I sent out last week. While ridership is doing very well, there has been a lag in revenue. And we've worked with Amtrak on that. And Steve, if I say something incorrect, you feel free to jump in. But we've worked with them, tried to correct that imbalance. Initial numbers from November, and they're 4 or 5 days old. So directionally, we like them, but we can't release them. Shows that we've corrected that imbalance. We're working with Amtrak to ensure that the fares are bucketed in such a manner that they maximize both ridership and revenue, which is a balance sometimes. So it looks, though, based on last month's initial data, that we're getting that back in the right direction. I think our goal was 67. I think we were right around 63, 64. So we're just a little below. We're confident we can get that back in line. And then the other milestones, Long Bridge, we're in good shape. The South Package RFP is still scheduled to go out end of March. All of those other milestones were in good shape. Happy to answer any questions on these before we go forward. Okay, no budget adjustments in November, so pretty straightforward the month of the year. We do have 3 upcoming contracts that I just wanted to make the board aware of. 2 of them are listed there, and 1 I will just speak to verbally. The first is the Amtrak operating agreement. Later today, Jeremy Latimer is going to talk about our relationship with Amtrak, but summarizing it, we contract with Amtrak under the PREA 209 methodology to have them run service on our behalf. We have an agreement with them that expires at the end of December. We have been working with them to put a new agreement in place. However, the overall 209 policy has changed, the one that impacts all of the states. And SAPRC is the state Amtrak Intercity Passenger Rail Committee. They, working with Amtrak, have not finalized those rates and methodology. They're very, very close, but we can't sign another contract till those are finalized. We were hoping that would be done by the end of this calendar year. It is not done yet, but again, it's very close. So what we're going to do is we're going to, between now and December 31st, enter into a 3-month extension that takes us January through the end of March, allows Amtrak to continue providing the service on our behalf. The total contract value is about $25 million, but that is offset by the revenue, the ticket revenue that we collect. The difference between the two is around $6 million. So letting you know that we do intend to continue having Amtrak service us, and we're very hopeful that shortly after the new year, we'll get a new agreement in place that will end this constant requirement for 3-month amendments, because it's not as efficient as it should be.
It's like Congress.
I didn't show that was not my comment. The next agreement is we received a grant partnering with North Carolina to do design on the S-line. If you see on the right-hand side, that's the S-line segments that are in Virginia. It was about a $58 million grant. That money went to North Carolina. We are finalizing a memorandum of agreement with them that will outline how we are reimbursed for our expenses under that. And our expenses under that, we will be procuring within the next week or so. John Costin, yes, thank you, week or so. We don't want to get it out too close to the holidays, so it should be middle of next week. We are procuring for designers to come in and bring each of these segments up to 30% design. That work will be funded by the federal grant. However, since that federal grant went to North Carolina, we have to work out with them how will be reimbursed. So we'll be entering into that agreement sometime in the next week or so. We hope we're close to finalizing that. That since it's about $38 million that will be coming to us, and then in turn going out to our contractors, it's above the $5 million limit. So I have to let the board know, but we'd let you know anyway. But I want to let you know we're going to be entering that agreement, and then we'll update you on the procurement as that moves forward. So any S-line questions? Yes, ma'am.
Well, as you know, this is very important to Hampton Roads, north and south of our region. So are there going to be updates or information available to us as you move forward with this to know what they're looking at for this design?
Sure, absolutely. So what's going to happen is
It really could impact us if we're not careful.
it will absolutely impact us, and we will make sure that everyone is updated as we go along. And as we've talked about before, this is really the critical step because it takes us from a good idea and a good opportunity to 30% design that tells us exactly what the real schedule is to do, what our options are, and what the cost is.
So you'll let us know about meetings that take place if we'd like to attend or join virtually?
Absolutely. Sure. I mean,
There's a big fear in our region that it will impact our number of trains or people getting stuck in Petersburg or Staples Mill and North Carolina just taking over.
so and yes, the board will fully be briefed at very regular times throughout this process. But as far as when we meet with the contractors as we're going through the procurement process, those won't be open, but the community involvement will be there as we go to 30% sign for sure. And we'll absolutely keep the board updated. Mike, did you raise your hand?
Quick note, I do want to let you know that we've been meeting with North Carolina on service planning and we made it very clear it's not negotiable that the Norfolk train continues to the Northeast Corridor. The 3 Norfolk trains that are there now will continue to the Northeast Corridor. They're not.
And that's a concern that it'll be North Carolina that gets to go up, not us. And we'll be stuck there. There will be a back and forth.
Jeremy Latimer and I were in a meeting just last week with some other staff, and they understand that. North Carolina understands that. Amtrak was in the meeting as well. They understand that the three Norfolk trains will continue. Their quarter is not going to be stopped short or anything bad.
And how about any future ones then? We'll work on that at the time.
Well, future ones still, of course.
And Newport News ones too. I mean, we've got
News ones will
total.
continue to, of course, that doesn't have the meeting point at Petersburg that the northbound trains do. The Newport News ones, again, non-negotiable. Everything, in fact, our agreements with Amtrak, agreements with CSX, is that all these trains that we have on board now are coming in 2026 and 2030 will continue on to Northeast Corridor.
Thank you.
So let me say that more strongly. Our intent is that every train that leaves Norfolk or Newport News or Roanoke, for that matter, that goes all the way to DC will continue to be a 1-seat ride to DC and further up. And the second we back away from that requirement, this board will know. In fact, let me say that even more strongly. This board will know before we back away from that because we wouldn't do that without your knowledge of it.
And I will add one more thing. We have, and Ms. Drake, you're very well aware of this. We have North Carolina Compact established by code in both states. That compact is supposed to meet once a year, actually a couple times a year, hasn't met for a while, has been impacted by COVID, and it's very difficult to schedule with multiple legislators on either side of the state line. We are meeting with that compact group on Monday. And so we'll make sure that information for any of the board members that want to listen to that 1-hour virtual meeting that is scheduled for the compact.
Be great.
We'll make sure you get that information. And so that is, we have the ongoing dialogue certainly at the staff level, but that is also happening at the legislative levels. But we've been very, very clear. And I will say North Carolina has been very supportive as we have worked on Long Bridge and worked on different aspects of Long Bridge, they understand that they are relying on us to get anything that goes through from North Carolina to the Northeast corridor. So, I mean, they have been a very good partner for us.
Absolutely. And then the third contract that we are going to be entering into very soon, and I'll send an email about this after the meeting or maybe tomorrow. So if there are contracts that we enter into, according to the bylaws, if they're above 5 million, the board needs to be notified 5 days in advance. We are finalizing or about to finalize our design on the bypass, Franconia-Springfield bypass. We had a contract with Parsons for that has already been awarded. They have taken that to 30%. And there's an option in that contract that says if we're happy with the work and want them to continue taking it to 100%, we can exercise that option. That's a $10 million option that we intend to exercise 5 days from now. Because it's not in writing there, again, I'll send you an email like I do in off-cycle meetings just to let you know that that's happening. But we intend to exercise that option and have Parsons be our designer through the end of design. Any questions about that? This is the Franconia-Springfield bypass. Okay. So those are our upcoming contracts and agreements. Passenger service updates. This is normally about 12 slides, and I'm going to do it in one. The October ridership is the most recent that we have, but it continues to be positive. October was the biggest October ever. It was the biggest month ever for our Roanoke trains. Our Roanoke trains. We saw over 32,000 people on these 2 round trips. So that's the biggest month ever. It continues to show we put the trains out there. People are going to get on the trains. Also, just as an aside, congestion is not getting any better. Anybody that traveled in their cars over the Thanksgiving weekend has come to me and said, hey, when are we getting more trains? So, I mean, that's a good thing, but ridership is strong, as you can see. Quick update on capital projects. Again, I sent this out last week, but the one thing that I did want to speak about here, we've been talking about the New River Valley project. We had told you all that we would get 30% design by the end of the year, and we would brief the board in January on the path forward. We did get that 30% design. We had a number of questions for the design team that we pushed back on. Our engineers, our operating folks, our board chair, who has some big project experience. So we have pushed back on them. They're answering those questions, and we still are on track to come back to this board in January with the results of 30% design and the recommended path forward. Financial updates. Again, we don't have actuals from November because it's too early, but this is our current grant funding status. Just to address the elephant in the room, we have seen, as you have seen over the last day or so, that some senators have started to announce the Fed-State partnership results. We've not heard anything about our application, but we remain hopeful. We are confident in our project, and we feel like we're in a good place. As soon as we hear anything, we will let the board know, but this is the status of our current applications. We did hear yesterday that the S-Line work North Carolina had put in an application, and it was reported in the press that they received about $1.1 billion for the south of the border S-Line work, and that's great for them. More importantly, there's a lot of money that has gone out for passenger rail overall, which is a great thing for the network and great thing for the system. So hopefully more news to come. And I won't take questions on that. Changes in budget process. We, as you know, have our VPRA budget, which is 3 different pieces. It's our capital projects, capital and operating grants, which are passed through, and our operating budget. We're required by code approved. We present that in the February timeframe, and then it's got to be approved before July 1st, the first of the fiscal year. We've decided this year to present that as normal, as we're going to do and get that approved, but to hold off on our operations budget, and here's why. We have a small staff. We've got about 50 folks up on the operating budget, get better information, and then have that ready for you all to see in the April-May timeframe. If you look at this schedule, March, April, we start talking about it, refining it. May, we will give the budget to you all. You all have to approve our budget, and we will ask you to do that in the June timeframe. This will just prevent us hitting the operating budget twice. The last couple of years, we've come back to you in June and said, here's what you saw in January. Here's how it's changed, and it's just not that efficient. So what we're going to do is keep on the capital budget path, which is a lot more predictable given these major projects, and have the operating budget not be finalized until March or April. Any questions about that change? This was reviewed with the Finance Committee, and they were all supportive of that So that ends my executive director's report. I know it was brief, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Next, which right now is 2031. And the unallocated amount is what we call our management reserve. We are required to give y'all a quarterly update. We also changed the sources of funding when they're reasonably known. So there's still a lot of variables there, but once we feel confident in those changes, we will report them. We give you a report 30 days after the quarter close. I will note that this quarter, if we're talking about, we are including the last quarter of fiscal year 23 because the policy wasn't adopted at that point. And the first quarter that ended September 30th. It's really 2 quarters worth of information. The presentation that I'm giving right now to ask for your approval of that management reserve balance. So that being said, you've seen this, the last 2 executive director reports, both October and then November report that went out. We put it in both of those. So hopefully this isn't new to you, but really at a high level, I'm not going to go through all these items, but basically it's really good news because of the sources did increase about $146 million. A lot of various reasons. We did get a Chrissy grant award, if you recall, about a month, maybe 2 months ago. We awarded that. And then the other big item here is the operating surplus from our Amtrak operations. Revenues and ridership were stronger. Actually, expenses came in under what had been estimated by Amtrak. That being said, you'll see over here we show some of this reserve, adding the 146 into the balance we had of 124 million. We're showing some of it as being constrained, and I guess that's because we're in the middle now with our capital budgeting process of doing our annual. And really, we do this constantly updating financial plan. Annually, we do our capital budget. We have to do a very significant and deep dive on that financial planning. So when we got this Christie Award, it caused a little bit of funding to move. And so the Amtrak capital contribution, some of that was programmed to the bypass project that Christie Award was made for. So that funding had to move. We haven't decided where to move it to, and it is constrained to the 10 required projects in the I-95 corridor. So as we're getting ready to do our capital budget planning, we'll decide where to allocate those funds, and that will free up. It will get rid of that constraint, and those will free up VPRA funding, which is unconstrained, can be allocated to any of our projects. And I should have said this, I apologize. If y'all have any questions, please feel free to jump in. And the last slide I have is talking about the goal. And if you recall the policy, we set a goal of up to 5% of that planning window. So all of our capital projects planned expenses and planned operational costs through 2031, 5% of that number, which comes out to $292 million. After this quarterly update, the management reserve balance is almost $270 million, so we're still short of that. Last thing I'll say before I ask for y'all's approval is we aren't coming today to ask to use any of these funds because we are so close to that capital budgeting process, and I think it would be much wiser to do that all-inclusive look. So when we come back in January, probably hopefully have some news, maybe an update on revenues through December. And then further, we will hopefully have some recommendations for uses of funding also. So with that, I would like to ask for y'all's approval of the management reserve as of September 30th.
Okay.
So moved. Oh, sorry.
Thanks.
Okay. Motion made by Mr. Spore, seconded by Ms. Dorsch. Is there any discussion? Peter, that may have been your fastest presentation ever. No discussion.
That's a good thing.
That is. He knows that was a compliment. Mary Stone, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Bulova,
Aye.
Ms. Bushu?
Aye.
Mr. Cardwell?
Aye.
Mr. Delandro?
Aye.
Ms. Dorsch?
Aye.
Ms. Drake? Mr. Hall?
Aye.
Ms. Moses Ned?
Aye.
Ms. Reinhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Spore?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Pittard. Great. Now we're on to a few small items before us today. Next item on our agenda is the Long Bridge North procurement. Mr. Kostanek, Mr. Constantine, welcome.
Morning, Madam Chair, VPRA Board, Executive Director. Thank you for listening to us today. I think we have a high bar to hit because I think our Executive Director and our CFO put us on the clock. So we're going to move through this very concisely. So here today, we're going to discuss the Long Bridge North procurement process and that package for board prior to us getting into the mode of the bringing the agreement to the contractor for execution. Just to really summarize where we've been. So throughout the year, we've been moving forward with constant updates to let everyone participating in this process be aware of where we've been, where we're going with our procurements. We've heard from Trinity Cleveland, who's our Long Bridge Senior Project Manager, Senior Director of Project, Mike McLaughlin from procurement personnel, as well as we had a board workshop just recently to go through the very details of the procurement process, which are still confidential because they're going through the motions right now. And I wouldn't belabor anymore. That is pretty much where we are and why we're here today. So quickly recapping what the Long Bridge project is. Of course, it's at the very north end of our program, somewhat. The only thing for the north of it is the front section, which is a segment that needs to be finished out prior to Long Bridge coming into service. The sealed corridor between Alexandria and the Amtrak connection at CP, Virginia. So Long Bridge Crossing is at the Arlo interlocking at the Aquatic Center in Arlington and terminates just east, geographic east of the main avenue in Washington, D.C. Please stop me if you have questions. I think we are very aware of what Long Bridge is today, but again, if there are any doubts, please ask. To just summarize, again, how we do Long Bridge. So we broke it into two packages. There's a south package, which encompasses the Potomac River crossing and landing on the Virginia side. And then the north package, which is the focus of this presentation, which does a handoff at the West Potomac Park and continues all the way to the main avenue and Love Pond interlocking. So that's the focus of our discussion here today. And I jotted some really quick. So it's in yellow. The main features there. It is not uncomplex. It encompasses the crossing of the WMATA Tunnel Portal, the crossing of I-395, Ohio Drive Southwest at the East Potomac Park, the Washington Channel, and the main avenue, all within the dense urban corridor within the district. As a quick summary, here are the pertinent methods that VPRA is utilizing for the VPRA-led projects. The specific one that we're focusing on today is the highlighted one in the middle, which is a progressive design build delivery method for the Long Bridge North package, which is the focus of this presentation. The progressive design build premise is a two-phase contract, which allows early contractor involvement and the ability for a contractor to collaborate with the agency, continue the design beyond the 30% current status, take it to 60%, continuing to de-risk our project, and then get us to a more accurate deliverable for pricing, where we would pause and actually have the opportunity to negotiate at 60% level. So these things set us up for a lot better success with pulling risk out of the project and getting better value out of it. So to date, we can announce that the design builder entity that was successful in our procurement process was the Skanska Flatiron joint venture with GMT and HNTB as their lead designers. I will turn the conversation now over to Mr. Kostnuk to summarize our procurement activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Fayed. Thank you, everybody. Before we get started, we got a lot of dates on here. Go talk about the procurement process. It's been ongoing for some time now. We just want to thank the committee. We had a nice, robust cross-section of VPRA that's been working round the clock, probably cursing me for some late nights, long hours, and a lot of reading, a lot of technical components, a lot of agreements that will just set us up for success on this PDBA and set us up for success on this Long Bridge project. I might look young, but I'm getting older. I am proud of the team that's here. It's been the best team that I've had the opportunity to work with. Too many people to mention, but just thanks for everybody behind the scenes that were on the evaluation committee to get us here. Where are we? A lot of dates up on the screen. We have been running this procurement process for some time now. And like Fayed said, we've been keeping you all informed on some of the progress. How can I recap where we are today? We ran a competitive open procurement and we were open for business on Long Bridge North. VPRA was excited. We were humbled in the world-class response we had on this project. There was some world-class interest that wanted to partner with us on this progressive design build agreement and work with us on Long Bridge North. How did we get to the Skanska Flatiron joint venture selection? It was a two-step process. And the dates are on here, but basically we ran an the procurement was an RFQ. We were looking to shortlist, but we were, for this project, the most highly qualified respondents. And then it was an RFP from there with the purpose of selecting the proposer that offered the best value to VPRA. And after that great evaluation committee did everything behind the scenes that were part of the procurement, we are here today to present that Skanska Flatiron joint venture was selected as the preferred proposer. Don't know if there's any questions about the whole procurement process, but please ask them if you have any. Yes.
So the notice to award, is that where we are today?
After today, we hope we need board approval, and then we've just given a notice of intent, and we've been negotiation with Skanska Flatiron, and that's where we provided the progressive design build agreement that we hope to provide a notice of award if we get approved.
So I attended the Transform ACTA conference, which was, when was that?
That's in October.
Is the 1st of October, right? I had a couple of firms who are being awarded told me that they won. So I was like, oh, you did? I had no idea. So I thought maybe a letter of intent had gone on, but now I see that October 11 is an interview with the firms.
Yeah, in the past month, we gave a notice of intent to award, but there's been no award yet. Now, in that conference, and I heard the same thing.
Okay.
Word travels quick, industry travels quick. And as part of the procurement process, we obviously have to send regrets as well.
Right.
And we were sending regrets. So word just travels quick. And I think around that time of that conference, we were sending regrets and people know who was playing, even though we don't release it, they all know.
Yeah.
And
if we could just give us a heads up that, I don't know how we could do that, but I just look like a fool. So I was like, oh, you did? I had no idea. So anyway, just FYI.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I don't know how it got out too many, but I was not happy that it got out.
It was running around there like wildfire, I'd say. Many people came up to me and said they won. So anyway, just FYI.
And I will say this, the same thing happened at the governor's conference, and I had the same reaction. It's completely inappropriate.
Yeah.
And it's something that, I hope that, these guys have run a world-class procurement process on a mega project. And, we need to hold that very tight. I did not know either. And so I had people literally the day that I I was told by DJ where we were headed. I was hearing people say the same thing. So I'm completely agree with you.
Just, if I may,
Yes.
just in addition to the process. So what happens is when we determine who the leading vendor is, we let them know so we can start the negotiations.
Right.
Because if we can't come to an agreement with them, then we'll never bring it to the board for approval. So they have got to know that they are leading so we can start negotiations. And to your point, as soon as they find out, they're not always as quiet about it.
Yeah.
The folks that find out that they're not the selected firm. It is a challenge in such a.
It is. Well, especially when they say it's a done deal. I thought it is a done deal. I was just a little confused. So, but yeah, I know it's a challenge, GJ. I understand that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. So very good questions. And of course, this is good feedback because it helps us to understand how we need to step up and probably implement better controls because we have kept everything very confident within. But yeah.
Yeah, I just thought maybe the letters of intent had gone out. So that would make sense to me. But then I just saw the date October 11th and the interviews. I'm thinking, wait a minute. So anyway, yeah, thank you.
Very good feedback. Of course, so continuing in our world-class efforts, we've done this before, not at VPRA, but elsewhere. So we are using best practices to just touch on the core framework of our design. So from a compensation perspective, there will be 2 points of compensation through the phase 1, which is that initial phase where the design builder will take the contract from 30%, advance it to 60%. Within the phase 1 work, they will have, of course, the design as the core premise of the contract and the ability to do pre-construction activities as well as early works. Today, what we understand is the design services have a nominal value of 39 million, and that is what we're seeking to advance immediately. And of course, that is based on actual compensation. It will be based on actual hours incurred as part of the compensation. That is how the design work unfolds. Phase 2, which will come after the delivery of the 60%, will give us the ability to negotiate a lump sum price at that 60% phase, and that will be other compensation right due at that time. And I believe we have a 400-day clock once we award the phase 1 part of the contract. Now, moving past the compensation, obviously inflation look. So for once they hit this milestone, they have 90 days to provide us with an opinion of probable construction costs. And that price at the 60% level will become a binding price proposal. It is open book, so contractors obligated to divulge all of their mechanics for us to actually get in there with the controls on the VPRA side to continue, because we understand that we're advancing this with a single contractor, but to continue the spirit of competitiveness, VPRA will have an independent cost estimator, an ICE, who will work on VPRA's behalf, independently assessing and really doing that open book deep dive with the contractor to, just make sure that we're actually getting fair pricing and consistent with market and the premise of the project. We do have a 10% threshold, after which if we fail to reach agreement at that 10% threshold, we do have a 3-point agreement contemplated, which gives VPRA the ability to off-ramp with the design builder, the builder element, and continue with the designer to continue along a traditional design build premise. So we still protect ourselves from risk with the project, not absolutely just dying should we fail to reach a fair negotiation. I will hand over to John now to just kind of talk through some of those additional safety measures we need to build into our methodology.
Yeah, and with the PDPA agreement, just the VPRA, and that's legal and the entire team, we've been working on this PDPA with the Skanska Flatiron joint venture to have that collaborative agreement that works for both parties, so this can be a successful construction project. And the PDBA, wanted to spotlight a few of the things that will help us that are in the contract to help us mitigate risk. We'd be naive to think that we're not going to hit a speed bump or two on a construction project of this size. And some of the items that we have listed here can help us mitigate risk. And as part of the PDBA method, if we just truly are looking to mitigate risk, and we wanted to put items in the contract so we know how to resolve them and allow us to keep going if we do hit a speed bump. Some of the items we're spotlighting, there will be the performance bond, 100% of the early work price, and it will be 100% of the phase 2 price when we reach the phase 2 services. We have the liquidated damages because of the unique nature of the area in this project and the rail transit system in DC and the metropolitan area. There could be an inconvenience to any of the traveling public and freight. And that's where we incorporate in there some late completion liquidated damages that we just wanted to spotlight. And then we also put in 16 relief events with the limited relief events. At this point, we don't know how much or when they'll be, but we do know there's 16 events, and we feel that this is the full universe of what VPRA will entertain when it comes to limited relief events. And we did just want to spotlight that we have in the agreement that the design builder does have warranty obligations for all the elements of the project that are going to be owned by us. And this will be in effect for 2 years after substantial completion. Next steps. We're here today at this board meeting. We are looking for board consideration on this PDBA agreement for the Long Bridge North. If we get the board approval, if we're at a point where DJ will execute the agreement, and then VPRA is optimistic, if we sign that agreement, then we'll be able to give a notice to proceed as soon as possibly early January. Yes.
Maybe tangentially related, but where and when does that bike ped bridge fit into all this? Because there's a lot of interest in that.
That's this afternoon's presentation.
Okay.
So I guess I failed to do that. Thank you for that question. And to add clarification, so the North package actually coordinates and does like a handshake, if you will, with the South package. So the South package is what actually picks up the ped bike bridge and the actual Potomac crossing. Thank you.
Questions?
Yes, sir.
So I have no doubt you guys are the best in the business. So I'm certain the interrogation of where we are today was done with utmost thoroughness. My only question is with respect to going forward, the inclusion of small and minority women-owned business enterprise. Can you talk to me about that process and why you feel these guys are obviously they have a track record, but specifically with respect to this project, walk me through your confidence level that they will do the necessary good faith efforts with respect to inclusion, and who monitors that? Is that a two-way partnership? Is it VPR? Is it us? Is it them? Walk me through that.
It's going to be a two-way partnership, and we are excited with what we're bringing to the table and with what Skanska Flatiron joint venture is bringing to the table as well. As we progress through this, we do have, and they had to submit a SWAM participation plan that we looked at and it was part of the proposals. But then when we get to phase 2 is where we think we're going to be, we know we're going to be able to inject a lot of capital into the SWAM community. And phase 2 is with the construction. And I am just excited to partner with Skanska. And we're going to do the items that are successful on these construction projects. And they have a proven record, and we're going to help them prove that they'll be successful with just outreach events, education events, breaking the packages up into the right size, the right appeal to the SWAMs. Some of the SWAM community, they don't have the bonding capacity or the ability to do 50 million. So we're going to break packages up that are appealing to them. And just with the outreach, the education, the working with SPSD and our partnership with them to get new firms SWAM certified, we're just really excited that we'll be able to inject a fair amount of capital into the SWAM community here with Long Bridge North.
So to that point, two questions. Number one, isn't federal money being used? So would it be SWIM or DBE?
With this one, it's going to be SWIM. We do not have the FTA. So we're going to follow the state's procurement, the state's model, and it's going to be SWIM.
Okay, my second question is, can we see the whole team? I mean, we know who the primes are, but can we see the subcontractors underneath them? Can we get that? Yeah, that'd be great. I think that would really be helpful.
John, is it fair to say that the contract was provided in the package for the board meeting? Is that material in the contract or is it?
Oh,
I don't think it's
Not-
down that.
we haven't seen the full, any of these teams, we haven't seen the list of, and that would help you.
And we do have a list of the actual SWAMs, and now some of those SWAMs would be with the Commonwealth SPSD,
Yes.
UV SWAM, comma DBE, comma, everybody rolls up to small.
Yes,
Now, we do know with phase one, the agreement that we're hoping to sign, you know, if we get approval, we do know with that, with Skanska Flatiron joint venture, that during the design element, we do have 12.2% of that agreement is with SWAM business. So when it comes to the design, it was phase one, Fayed was mentioned, and we have 12.2% percentage.
and what is your goal? What is the goal?
This project is not a project specific. We're looking to maximize SWAM usage.
Okay,
All right, so the action before the authority board is to award the progressive design build agreement for the Long Bridge Project North package as has been described by staff. Do I have a motion?
I'm happy to make that motion.
All right, motion by Ms. Bulova. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Cardwell. Any other discussion or questions for the team?
Madam Chairman,
Yes,
just a comment.
yes.
I know how much work has gone into moving this forward. And I would just like to say thank you and congratulations to our staff who have gotten us to this point. And this is a good day for Amtrak, for VRE, for passenger rail. So I'm assuming the motion will pass.
Absolutely. No pressure. No pressure. Yeah, these guys make it look and sound very straightforward and simple, but this is a huge deal. Any other comments or questions? All right, hearing none. Mary Estelle, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Boulevard,
Aye.
Ms. Bushu,
aye.
Mr. Cardwell,
Aye.
Mr. Delandro.
Aye.
Ms. Dorsch. Aye. Ms. Drake. Mr. Hall.
Aye.
Ms. Moses Ned.
Aye.
Ms. Reinhardt.
Aye.
Mr. Spore.
Motion passes and we have history. So thank you, everybody, and congratulations to the VPRA team. You've done a fantastic job.
Madam Chair, yeah, for full transparency, I think once we do the awards, I think when we update our website, we should put the whole team. So just for full transparency, it's very helpful to the industry and it's very helpful to our elected officials.
Thank you. That's good feedback.
One more comment, Chairman. I'm already thinking there'd be great value in getting this like a regular agenda item going forward on progress on this project, right?
Without question.
Okay, and I would be supportive of regular updates on SWAM DBE too. This is a huge project. We could make a big difference, and especially if there's no quota in there, right? It's a lot we could potentially do to the board to make sure that's a number that we're all proud of.
We can certainly do that. DJ, that could be something in your executive director's report as well. To just keep a kind of running dialogue on that. That's just great suggestions. All right. Well, we're not done with history yet today. Next up on our agenda is the Franconia-Springfield bypass procurement. We're going to ask Mr. Kosinick's going to come back. We've got Mr. Pelletier. Welcome back.
In a similar vein, John and I are going to speak to the Franconia-Springfield bypass construction procurement ahead of proposed board action. Looking back on 2023, the VPRA team has briefed the board twice this year on the bypass project. In August, ahead of our RFP, We described the project in some detail along with its context within the Franconia corridor, as well as the TRV program writ large. And then last month, similar to Long Bridge, we briefed the procurement outcomes and the outline of the upcoming agreement in the board workshops. As you all know, the Franconia-Springfield bypass is a critical part of the TRV Phase 1 program. It will allow passenger trains to move seamlessly between the east and west parts of the RFP corridor to service different station and platform configurations between DC and Richmond. It's a significant structure in its own right. It's almost a mile long. The project itself has a almost 2-mile footprint. And in addition to the bridge structure, numerous retaining walls, crash walls, drainage structures, environmental protections, a lot to be done. It is a challenging project in its own right. It's in a very busy corridor. We have to build the entire project within the active rail corridor. It's not in an easily accessible location, so we have a lot of work to do on right-of-way and accessibility to make sure that we can actually build it. We have numerous stakeholders, both within the corridor with CSX and VRE and Amtrak, but also our neighbors outside the boundaries as well with Fairfax County Park Authority, residents, and businesses. We also have federal and state funding partners that have requirements that we have to meet. And we also have multiple projects going on within the same footprint. CSX will be working and constructing the Franconia to Lorton third track project, and VRE will be working on the Franconia-Springfield Station Improvements project as well. We've set an ambitious schedule for ourselves. Want to get substantial completion on the bypass structure by the end of 2026. So we have a lot to do. I think John, I can see you through procurement.
And once again, can't say thanks enough to the whole evaluation committee. There is a lot of steps that go into this, and the Franconia-Springfield bypass is another amazing big project, and there were too many people to thank, but there were a lot of people and brains and everybody working to make this procurement the best, so we can get the best, hopefully the best partner, for this Franconia-Springfield bypass procurement. Now on this one, we're showing some of the dates up on the screen again. This one was a one-step procurement. We were using the one-step RFP to select a preferred proposer. For this one, once again, had a lot of interest and a lot of great firms interested in this. One thing that keeps me up at night, my team's heard it. If we do these competitive procurements, will anybody show up? Have a lot of peers, a lot of other agencies, a lot of other stuff where there's so many just exciting projects, they're not getting the competition. But here we did have 6 firms interested that submitted proposals for the bypass RFP. And we ran the RFP, and it was a single step procurement with the purpose of selecting the proposer that provides the best value, the VPA, on this project. After running the procurement, we are excited to say today that Flatiron Herzog was selected as the preferred proposer. Any questions about the process itself? And I don't know if any word got out on this one.
It did not.
No, this one, not a peep.
You had a few?
No, not on this one.
I didn't either.
No, I was agreeing with you completely.
Okay, I didn't hear anything about
Quiet.
it. Good job, Flatiron Herzog.
Well, and with these two, we are sending regrets, and then you'll see the list of players on the other one and on this one too. There's just a lot of people, and then when we do send regrets, it gets around.
I
do have a question regarding community, reaching out to the community and public hearings. How is that determined? Is VPRA, do you all determine that, or is there? Okay.
We have a public information plan that's worked through our comms team, and we've been making regular outreach to the community. In fact, just last week, we had a meeting with Supervisor Luss from Fairfax County, and we're planning to do.
I'm talking to the actual citizens, public hearings. Okay.
And we've done some already, and we're planning to do January as well. So, yeah. Okay, so we plan to deliver this project using a construction manager general contractor or CMGC method. With CMGC, we bring a contractor on during the final design stage in a collaborative capacity to work with both us, VPRA, and our designer to develop a design and a schedule that that's constructible, that meets our project goals, but is also responsive to all of our project restrictions and constraints and our requirements. We refer to that step, that collaborative step, as phase one of the CMGC contract. Once we finalize the design or get near to the end of the design, we move to negotiate a final construction price with that contractor. And if everything goes well and we agree to a price, we move into phase two, which is the final construction phase. Compared to the two design build models that you see here for Long Bridge, the obvious difference here is that VPRA will have separate contractual relationships with the designer and the contractor. As DJ just mentioned a few minutes ago, we've had a designer on board with Parsons since the preliminary engineering phase. We've negotiated a scope and fee with them to continue on to the final design phase and to execute that in conjunction with the execution of the CMGC contract as well. We're confident that the CMGC method is the best suited for the bypass. It's the best attribution of risk between the parties. It also leverages construction industry expertise for a very logistically challenging project at the time that we need it most, which is during design and planning for the work. So we're really looking forward to getting that team, that expertise on board. And because of that, it also gives us the best opportunity to meet our schedule requirements. This is the sort of timeline and schematic that I presented back in August. We have completed preliminary engineering. We are hopefully almost done with CMGC procurement and ready to move into phase one of the contract. We're going to start 60% design with Parsons, as mentioned. Once we get to the 90% design, we'll start negotiating a guaranteed maximum price with the CMGC contractor. And we'll also be consulting with an independent cost estimator, similar to what Fi had mentioned on the progressive design build. We'll be working with an ICE to make sure that the GMP prices that we get from Flatiron Herzog are consistent with our estimates as well. And if we all agree on that price and we can actually come to agreement on the terms and conditions for phase two amendment, we'll move into construction. The CMGC will lose that CM designator and will essentially become a general contractor like any other project, with VPRA providing construction oversight and Parsons providing some design services during construction. John, take it away.
Once again, similar to what we did with the other project, we did just want to remind everybody that for this one, we are looking at a phase one, which includes the design, the pre-construction, and any early works. That's what we're looking to sign the agreement here if we get board approval. That is a cap of the 4.8 million, and the compensation for that work will be based on the hours incurred. Then, similar to the other, we're going to get to a phase two, which is the construction, and all the parties will be doing the guaranteed maximum price, the GMP, and that's negotiated between 60 and 90%, and after some significant de-risking is being performed. When it comes to the price negotiations for that phase two, we are going to be looking for the OPCC, the opinion of probable construction cost, within 90 days of the notice to proceed. And then we are going to be looking to get to that GMP between 60 and 90% design. Once again, we asked all the parties that we need an open book reconciliation, and we are going to have that ICE, the independent cost estimator, to help us ensure that, there's no wide spectrum, that we're at A and they're at Z, and we are just going to have an open book reconciliation when we are getting that GMP.
When does that estimator come on board? Sounds like he's not there yet.
We're going to need them here in the spring. They're going to need to be here at the time when they submit their OPCC in 90 days. We're going to need them on.
So they'll be, okay, thank you.
Once again, just behind the scenes, legal, everybody has been working with the Flatiron Herzog team, to have an agreement in place that will lead to a successful project. Once again, on these construction projects, we just wanted to spotlight, we're incorporating some items into the agreement that will hopefully help mitigate risk. And if something comes up, we can move forward. And once again, we're having the security packages on this. We have liquidated damages in the agreement. We have relief events again, and then we do have construction warranties. Like I said, these items with the agreement are just to help us mitigate any risk as they come up on some of these construction projects. Before we get to next steps, and I don't know if there'll be a question again. I was thinking about it after the question last time on the swim on this one too. We are excited to inject capital into the community. I mentioned earlier that, we had 6 firms interested in this. Not only do we need the primes and those larger firms to be interested in our projects, whoever we select as that prime and us, we need those local and small businesses as well. For this to be success, we need help from everywhere. And, projects this size, there's a lot of opportunity for help. So Flatiron Herzog and us, they brought, and as part of the interviews, as part of the proposal, they brought their supplier diversity director to the communications and we're part of it. And we once again excited just to engage the local and small businesses throughout phases 1 and 2, and just to really have to maximize small and SWAM usage when we can. And it's going to be a similar process. What I found, and it's worked well for me in the past, talking with Flatiron Herzog, it's the same thing. Here in 2023, there's still a lot of just grassroots networking that's going to have to happen. So we're going to have outreach events. We're going to have email blasts. We're going to use local communities, the chambers of commerce, everybody, just to educate people about our project and about the opportunities that are out there. And just what we're going to be doing when we get to phase 1 and phase 2, if we get to phase 1 and phase 2 on this, we just are excited that with the education, the outreach, the right packages, we will be able to have SWAMs help us and have an awesome project. What would be the next steps? We are asking for board consideration of the CMGC agreement. And then if we receive it, we will be at a point to have DJ sign it as the executive director, sign the agreement. And once again, we're optimistic that we can issue a notice to proceed ASAP in the foreseeable future. And then we hope to start site clearing, not hope, we will, if we get approval, start site clearing and early works by the end of March 2024, and then full construction beginning later in 2024 with substantial completion in 2026.
Any questions?
Yeah, I just had a question, John. So even with the federal nexus, the federal funding nexus, no goal requirement here with respect to small and DBEs?
Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying, even with the federal funding nexus, no small DBE participation goal here?
Goal on this one, no, sir.
Okay. All right.
Looking to maximize the use.
Okay. Got it. And then lastly, you mentioned grassroots effort as well. I've been in touch with my local chamber as well as the Northern Virginia Black Chamber as well. So I might need y'all for a road show at some point.
Please, if you don't mind, if we ink the agreement, it would be a dual thing where it would be for us and the Flatiron Herzog. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely want that.
And then we would need y'all's help as well, when we do events and if we rent out a hall somewhere and have an event from 7 to 10 p.m. just to do some of these educations, we will be, it doesn't hurt if y'all know people in chambers and commerce, please help us communicate that as well. We would love to pack any halls that we have and see several hundred firms show up as opposed to 30.
One follow-up question. So no goal. So why, what, help me understand the methodology behind that. Of no goal.
So, John, I just step in and help your life. If we have Christian Peterson, who's our in-house expert over there on this. So it gets real complicated real fast. With FRA, we have to follow the DBE CFR regulations. Right. It means we encourage DBE participation. So why no project-specific goal? We actually are prohibited from having project-specific goal. Part of the reason is because we're a very new entity. Mm-hmm. We do not have a history of any sort of discriminatory practices that would trigger project-specific goals. I think perhaps most people in this room may be used to FHWA or FTA funded, where you do have project-specific goals.
Yeah, I'm more so on the air side as like over there with them.
And that's that. But FRA is a little bit different. So
yeah,
we have
absolutely
regulations that say You encourage DBE usage, do everything you can to maximize the participation.
Yeah.
But we are not allowed to have a project-specific goal according to our contract.
Okay.
Christian, I don't know if you have flavor to that or.
I think it's nuanced and, you know, you have race and gender neutral obligations here, as Michael was alluding to, without that, you know, compelling history to suggest that you need a contract specific goal to address the deficiencies on your performance. I think DE regulation 426 will apply on that circumstance. The same would be triggered with SWABs with women. Oh, and you try to implement goals, that's no longer it's gender. In your procurement.
Rainy skill like FAA's AIP, but digress. But anyway, no, I appreciate that overview.
I'm surprised to hear this. So I used to be a DBE and it wasn't based on to get the DBE certification it was, but once I got it, it didn't matter if I was a Martian. I was a DBE. But you made reference.
When you have a contract goal, is not race and gender neutral. You have to have that compelling reason, one, to even use it for a DBE, FTA, FHWA, or FAA funding would be applicable. You don't have that.
Mr. Spore.
Despite the fact that we don't have a goal, you're going to track all that as we go through the project. And,
Yes, sir. Yes,
and
sir.
if the figure you mentioned on the Long Bridge, 12.2 is if you can get that on these, that's very good.
Mr. Stadler, that's something that you can report to the board on a regular basis in your executive director's report.
Absolutely. Just like we committed to on the Long Bridge, we'll regular updates on the progress, and also we'll update on SWAB.
Thank you.
Any further questions? All right, so with that, the action before the board is to approve the award of the agreement for the Franconia-Springfield bypass project. Do I have a motion based on the staff recommendation to do that?
So
Moved by Mr. Hall, seconded by Ms. Bulova. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's make some more history. Thank you, Mary Stell.
Ms. Bulova? Aye. Ms. Bushu?
Aye.
Mr. Cardwell? Mr. Delandro?
Aye.
Ms. Dorsch? Ms. Drake? Mr. Hall? Ms. Moses Ned?
Aye.
Ms. Reinhardt?
Aye.
And Mr. Spore?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Pelletier, Mr. Kopnuck. Another big day for VPRA. Next item on our agenda is Potomac Shores land acquisition update. We've got Mr. Stadler coming to the podium along with Mr. Yag. Are you?
You see, I'm just going to sit back.
Okay.
Awkward because you're not on camera on the podium.
Oh, yeah. Come sit back here.
Madam Chair, just while we transition here,
Yes.
on the previous two items, I can't say enough that this is a game changer for not just VRE, but Amtrak. But most importantly, it's for our collective passengers in the communities we serve. So I just want to make that point. Great job by the respective teams and the committees and everybody involved, but it's really, this is a monumental day for our collective passengers. So just wanted to make that point.
Chairman, if I could just add to that, it's also a big day for the freight railroads for
Absolutely.
CST. You know, essentially, this is a partnership to provide adequate space and, the ability to separate, the freight from the passenger rail. So it's a partnership that hasn't always been easy going way back.
Yes, ma'am.
Has developed over the years, thanks to folks who were in this room. So thank you.
And I appreciate that comment because, we spend a lot of time, obviously, the focus of this body is passenger rail, but there are significant benefits to freight movement. We're unlocking a freight bottleneck too. And so while we're focused on the passenger side and the things that we do as a body to help advance passenger rail, it is, a monumental shift for the freight side and what we can do to help, move more freight by rail out of the Port of Virginia into the Northeast Corridor. So incredibly significant day. All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning again. I am here to give folks an update on our progress with Potomac Shores. I am joined by Joe Yogman, who is our Senior Associate General Counsel. I know everybody in VPRA has heard me say, if I misspeak, feel free to step in and correct me. I think the board's heard me say that too, and I think Mike's done that. A couple of folks have done that before. At the end of the day, I need to make sure what is out there is correct. I promise you in this presentation, I will be interrupted because I have learned with the last few months about polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, volatile organic compounds, polychlorinated biphenyls, excuse me. So Joe has forgotten more about that than I will ever know. So you can expect an interruption in this conversation. So you feel free, Joe. A few months ago, earlier this year, we signed a framework agreement with a developer in the Potomac Shores area who is working to build a new station that will benefit passenger rail, benefit the community, benefit VRE. It'll be a VRE station. And I thought it was a good time to give folks an update on where we are in that process of getting this station built. This is not our project. This is a project that we're helping out on. It's a project that is definitely beneficial to passenger rail. Anybody that's been in that Prince William County area in a car knows that there's got to be another solution there. So I wanted to update the board on where we are. This slide gives you a little background. So Potomac Shores is about 2,000 acres. It's a real estate development that's been around for now over a decade, or maybe around a decade since the early 2010s. It was begun with the promise of a VRE station, and for various reasons, that station is not yet there. Thankfully, the developers made great progress, and houses are being built there. With houses comes people, with people comes road congestion, and we desperately need the station there. We were approached earlier this calendar year to help that process move forward. Short story, probably a little longer than it needs to be. What is being contemplated is VPRA accepting as a donation a plot of land that will be used to help move the project forward. And that land is called Cockpit Point. I apologize. I will probably call it Cocktail Point a couple of times in the presentation. For some reason, it stuck in my mind, but it's Cockpit Point. So this is what we're going to be talking about over the next 10 minutes or so. All right, Potomac Shores development, just at a high level, you see this is the aerial view. The development is right there, right on the river. You see where the VRE station is proposed. All of the housing, clubhouse, all of that stuff is just to the west of the station. And then the plot of land that we'll be talking about is further south, and you see the outline there. What the developer is looking to do is just build the station there. Unfortunately, they've gotten into a little bit of trouble because the land that they're building the station on has been railroad land for a long, long time. And as we all know, railroad land is not always the cleanest land, and you don't always know what's there. So what's being proposed is under environmental regulations. This is where Joe's going to start interrupting. You can move land from railroad property to contiguous railroad property, and it's no problem. So what's being proposed is that they would give us this plot of land so we could move railroad soil to railroad soil, freeing up the area for them to build the platform there for the VRE station. Joe, pretty close?
Yes.
But that's pretty close. So here's the proposal. So the station you see right there would be developed by the developer at no cost to us. They've actually started working on the parking garage, which is on the other side of the right-of-way. They have a construction camera, and it's amazing to look at that every week, how that is going up so quickly. They're really making great progress. However, they're going to hit a stumbling block when that parking garage is done, likely around next summer. They want to continue working on the platform. They have got to move land to do that. So they're proposing to give us this 4.5 acres, which is down in the highlighted area. If for some reason, when they're moving that soil, first of all, before they move the soil, they've got to have a contractor's work plan in place. We will review that plan. We'll make sure that it meets our requirements. Our legal team, Joe in particular, will make sure that we are not taking on any risk there or that our risk is mitigated. If when that movement is taking place, there's any contaminated material that rises above the levels, we'll just stop work and then we'll have to do something different. But we are making sure there are protections in place throughout this whole process, so it's minimizing the risk to VPRA.
EJ, may I
Please.
talk on that a little bit, maybe the previous slide? So right now, the developer and us and DEQ, we've met with twice.
Tell me again who DEQ is.
Department of Environmental Quality.
Thank you.
We met with them twice, once with the manager of the voluntary remediation program, we'll explain that in a minute, and one with the director of the Northern Virginia office of DEQ. And they're very supportive. They are straightforward. They're positive about this proposal. What we have said to them and what they agree with is that there's no evidence right now that the soil that would be dug out for the VRE platform is contaminated. The soil was placed there when the rail line was relocated from the river's edge to its present location in 1927. And railroads, as you probably know, operate on limited grades, and they had to dig through some hillside, a little bit of topo, and they ended up placing the soils on the one side, creating that hill, but they did so out of an undeveloped site. So there is no indication presently there is any contamination. However, as DJ says, you might find stuff you don't expect. We are managing risks through the entire process, and that's where the possibility of obtaining a variance comes in. That's one of three possible outcomes. If there's a very small amount of product, we can set it aside and put it back, over excavate and put it back in the hole. If there is a little more product and it still does not present a hazard to human health, we can obtain a variance and move it a half mile down the rail corridor to this new site. And if somehow there is something that is extremely harmful found on that land, we will probably put it back in place, cover it, and nothing else will happen unless some agreement is reached with the developer and or other parties.
Can I ask a couple questions? Make sure I understand what you're saying. We're taking ownership of this land. It's currently owned by the residential real estate developer.
So let me back it up. Where the station is being built, we are acquiring that land from CSX as part of our overall agreement. So the land where the station is going to be our land.
Is the whole corridor ours?
Well, half the corridor there is what we're going to get through the CSX deal. The highlighted plot near the bottom is not, it's contiguous to the right of way that we're going to be acquiring, but it's not our right of way. Okay.
Who owns that?
The developer owns it now. And
we're agreeing to take it because we're allowed to own contaminated land. And if he continued to own it, he'd have to clean it up. Or are we buying it because the stuff we're digging out for the VRE, that he's digging out for the VRE station may be contaminated and he has to go somewhere with it and we say dump it on our land?
so the developer is required, based on the design of the platform, to move railroad dirt that we own. And because it's railroad dirt, it has to be moved to other railroad property. And right now, there's no other railroad property to move it to anywhere close. So what the developer is recommending, or offering really, is the developer would give us, not we wouldn't buy it, they would give us this plot of land south of the station site. And then we could move railroad land to what's currently developer land, but would then become railroad land. So the soil that they're moving, they've got to move somewhere. They need a place to move it. Their proposal is that they will give us this plot of land. Once we own it, it will become railroad land and they can move it to that land. Does that make sense?
I guess it does. When someone wants to give me some free land, I'm always a little bit skeptical.
Right. Well, to be fair, it's benefiting them because it gives them a place to move that dirt that is technically our dirt. So they can do their station development.
Because if it's, I'm trying to understand, because if it's railroad land, it can be more contaminated than if it
has the
opportunity to own it. Right? Because I said like the DEQ standards are different or something.
Well, it's complicated. First of all, that
Cockpit Point, it's the Cockpit Point site is part of a property that is in the voluntary remediation program.
So we haven't talked about that. So
We
maybe
haven't talked about that yet. And it can be moved to that site because it's contiguous to the rail corridor. So if we talk a little bit about site history, that may give you different questions or may answer some of your questions.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to change the slide. So the next slide talks about Cockpit Point. This is the land that they're looking to give to us. It's a bigger parcel of land. They're going to subdivide it. That's not the legal term, Joe, don't jump on me, but they're going to subdivide it. So 4.5 acres will come to us and the rest of it they will keep. This is land as their portion's developed. I mean, I guess.
Well, their portion will also be restricted. Their plan is to build a marina there. They will have to have use restrictions on their land as well. And there will be a number of controls that we'll also get into in a later slide.
So just adding complexity, and this is the fun part. Cockpit Point, it used to be a District of Columbia landfill.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. And so they have got to, the developer are in the voluntary remediation program with DEQ to ensure that that is remediated. And by remediating it, they had to put a 2-foot cap of clean soil on top of what was there. And they've done that. They're in the process of getting a certificate of completion that says DEQ certifies, yep, they've done exactly what they need to do. Originally, they were going to get a certificate of completion for the whole plot of land, big one. But what they've decided to do is get 2 separate ones, one for the 4.5 acres that's ours, or that would be ours, that we're contemplating receiving. And then the other certificate of completion is for the remaining part of that land that the developer can use later with restrictions, as Joe points out. Did that confuse you more?
No, that helped a lot. I'm just wondering, I'm just thinking, as a lawyer, that your worst case scenario, everything, beautiful housing development going in there to something that was a DC dump for 100 years. We all knew that. But then when the houses are in there, like, oh, you've got a polluted site next to my home where I raise my children, VPRA, you need to remediate that. And then suddenly we've taken on something that's off mission and higher risk and lower cost. And I look in here and it says we still haven't assessed yet. So calculating risks. I just don't want it to be an albatross that we're taking on that becomes even more of a liability when we have nice families all moved in here.
Absolutely agree. And that's what Mr. Westerman called, quote, our worst day. As we have these conversations, we bring that up all the time, what happens on our worst day. And that's really why we're doing a lot of this homework ahead of time, getting DEQ to agree that, yes, the developer has done everything necessary to ensure that with that cap, that this land is good, given the restrictions, that there's no schools, no residential, that kind of stuff. So that's the process we're going through now.
Okay, I'm trying to understand what one comment that he made is that can this land be polluted because it's contiguous to a rail track, or can it only be polluted if a railroad owns it? Like, do we necessarily have to take ownership to avoid the developer cleaning it up? So he just continue to own it because it's contiguous and have it polluted?
So the developer is the problem that we're looking to solve together is the developer needs to move a lot of soil from the platform site, which is our soil actually, to another location. And by regulation, by law, by code, by some requirement, they can only move it to railroad land because.
DJ, I'll speak to that a little bit. What takes, there's risk management going on by the developer as well as by VPRA, right? And part of that is the developer doesn't want to take on risk of moving the soil without knowing what's in the soils, or at least without knowing that there can be a destination for the soils. CSX, so long as CSX owns the property, will not allow testing of its property, even if it's likely to be clean. So, and DEQ agrees that currently it does not appear to be a hazardous waste issue
at the VRE state, at the proposed VRE station site. The significance of VPRA owning the 4.5 acre portion of Cockpit Point abutting the rail corridor is how, if you go through the sequencing of risk and there's some contamination found and it's a little more than you can just replace in the existing site by over excavating, there is a program called the Contaminated Media Variance Program. It's been around since 2012 that, with certain standards, allows movement of soils that are contaminated but don't pose a risk of hazard to human health to be moved in contiguous site, the contiguous site. And DEQ confirmed on Monday that these two sites will be considered contiguous sites. They're all part of the rail corridor. That's how we end up interested in this 4.5 acre site as a destination for the soils excavated for the station.
So we won't be able to get an opportunity to test it until it turns to us.
It will, once we own it.
Yes.
Obviously.
Sure.
It can be tested.
Well, we know we're buying, or we know we're accepting ownership of a former landfill from DC. It's only a question of the dirt we're adding to it, whether that's even different level or degree of contaminated. Because we're taking ownership of a dump.
A dump that has been remediated with the cap and that's what we need to make.
It may help. I mean, there have been 87 different test locations at this site from actually more than 87, from 1989 to 2016. And then when the cap was actually placed, the developer flattened out the area to prepare for the cap, for the 2 foot, and in some cases 2 foot plus cap. And when they did that, they found some drums, some tires, some metal waste. All of that they removed. They did an electromagnetic survey. This has been a thoroughly tested site. There are sites all along the rail corridor that may impact some construction project at some time in the next 20 years. This is not, in our view, a particularly high degree of risk.
Okay, so the site itself, the risks have been identified and mitigated. Okay, so it's just the fill dirt removing, you don't know.
Yes.
Because it's in CSX control.
Yes.
Okay.
As the fill dirt is moved, if we go forward with this process, we will have folks on site ensuring that everything is clean.
If it's not, then we mitigate.
We stop work, and then it depends on what we find, but we stop immediately before it moves down. You had a question, or was it answered?
Well, actually, I have 2 questions. Has an analysis been done on the ridership at that station in any way?
Not
Potential ridership.
not post-COVID. I don't know, Mr. Dalton, put you right on the spot.
We're doing some updated information now, to your point, about post-COVID and stuff, but
So we don't know at this point. And then secondly, my question is, so aren't you from Prince William County?
I am.
Where is that location? How does that relate to the new data centers that were passed?
Opposite sides of the county.
It's opposite sides. Okay.
Right. But I have a question and I think it's answered, but just to be sure, if by some chance the level of contamination is of an amount that we have to stop, what's the next step?
The next step is to put the contaminants back where they were, cover them with soil as they were, and do nothing further unless there is a subsequent agreement between the developer and VPRA and perhaps VRE, perhaps some other agreement that would permit us to go forward.
Which then leads to substantial impact on the progress of the project. And is that then not within VPRA's hands and strictly between the developer and
VRE.
Or do you-
and VR.
Well, that would be the developer's decision on what to do next. I mean, the developer then would have to decide what they would want to do to go forward, to finish the project or to alter the project to avoid that area. That would be hands off.
Because I think it's important to note that this is a developer constructed station. This is not a VRE project. It's not a VPRA project. It is the developer constructing the station.
Okay, and we would still just have that 4.5 acre donation and it's just sitting there. Is that
Contiguous
just
to our right.
contiguous? Okay, all right. Thanks.
This is just a briefing.
Yes, there's no action.
No action.
No action.
We signed the framework agreement with the developer.
Action.
Be no action taken.
All I want to say is this station has been on maps for VRE since the very beginning. And I seem to remember maybe 15 or 20 years ago, there was a ceremony out there on site, believing, that something was going to happen. And now I kind of understand a little bit more about, why things have not moved forward. This is really complicated.
And as I said earlier, there finally is progress being made. The parking garage, I mean, it's amazing how fast that's going up. And really the parking garage and the station itself are right on the same plot. That's not a legal term. And then the platform's on the other side of the right of way. So they're making great progress on that.
Yeah.
And the community is excited to see it. As I said earlier, the congestion there, and someone's going to ask me for numbers and I don't have them, but the congestion is really significant.
Right.
And folks want another way to get into DC and to get
right
where they want to go.
If we had to build the station, Rich, what's the estimate of the value or the cost
For
this?
this station here, I would say in today's dollars, if you're just looking at, the station platform, of course, there's a little bit more to that.
Building the parking.
Yeah, they're building
car and all that.
Parking deck and stuff like that, but this is a $18 to $20 million.
Yeah. So that's what we're getting at. That's what you're getting out of it. We're getting out of it.
The network is, yeah, absolutely.
And part of that, and going back to the ridership piece, the one reason why I hesitated in asking that question is because the specific location of this, it's not just obtaining ridership directly from that development. This is Eastern Prince William County. It's very accessible, if you will, from Eastern Prince William County and basically I-95 East, from Fairfax County all the way down to Stafford County. So the location here, and you may ask, well, of course, we have the it's not up there anymore, but the Quantico station is just south of that. And of course, access to the Marine Corps base has basically gotten more stringent, not less stringent, right? So there's a lot of reasons why this becomes not just a station for the developer or for the development there, but this is really for that part of the region is very important from an accessibility standpoint.
Along that point, I know, Rich, you guys are working a lot on, how does VRE adapt to changing, commuting patterns, travel patterns post-COVID when you don't have just these big, peak period shifts between Fredericksburg and DC. And, you said it's on the map. There's a pretty significant private high school that's near this site that has been advertising accessible by the Potomac Shores VRE station for years. And so it's a destination. And I use that as an example. It's a big place where you're going to have, you're not just taking people into DC, you're taking people from Fredericksburg to a destination like Potomac Shores as well. With it. So it is an infill and it is meeting a different type of travel and commuting need than maybe historically what VRE has not.
I guess the only thing that I would add, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, as I understand it, this is not a sort of inaugural run in terms of a remediated area of land. There's been remediation efforts all throughout this particular plotting area, as I understand. So it's not like you all are creating a new playbook for this.
This isn't a new problem. This is a new solution and one that we think works for everybody.
Yeah, right.
But to the comments that were made earlier, we want to enter this solution, which we're in favor of, making sure all of our risks are mitigated, because what Ms. Dorr said is exactly what we don't want.
Absolutely.
And we're comfortable that we're in a good place that we can go forward.
Absolutely.
But Joe talked earlier about the restrictions with the certificate of completion, which is a reminder is what DEQ is giving the developer on the cockpit point.
I did it.
Almost.
You probably need a series.
This has been a fun project. What the developer's getting on that cockpit point is a certificate of completion that says that the remediation was complete for that cap that was above the old DC landfill. These are the restricted covenants, no groundwater, you see them there. So those are the restrictions that will be in place. As far as we're concerned, should we accept the land, it's just going to be part of our right of way, and it's going to be right there. But those are the requirements for the land once the certificate of completion is.
Thank you. If I could speak to that, it also includes the statement that DEQ determines that there isn't a non-acceptable risk to the human health, and that controls are implemented at the site. The control here being specifically a permanent cap over the contamination. DEQ will, as a result of issuing a certificate, provide immunity from an enforcement action. In other words, with respect to everything under the cap inside the firm, no more remediation is required. So that will hold unless an unknown significant risk to human health is discovered under the cap. And if there is no activity which goes back under the cap, the likelihood of discovering something is very low. And in addition, this site has been studied, prodded, test pitted, groundwater monitoring wells since 1989.
For the most of the right of way that we're acquiring.
And does DEQ have this, I'd like to think, robust public participation process, and there's not like local mothers group who are fighting this in any way? I mean, is it all clear that folks, we've identified everything that we can, we're comfortable with the risk? Is that where we are?
Speak to that. When the developer went through the certificate completion program, they had a public meeting at which they announced that their plans for the use were to construct a marina and have a park with trails. In other words, no invasive use other than perhaps at the marina, and some utilities to get there. And they didn't receive any comment at all, positive or negative, but they did have a public meeting on that. And the question which the Developers Council has passed of DEQ, and we are all waiting for the answer, is do we need to have another public meeting if part of the use will be the VPRA to accept 4.5 acres for a airport?
Or to potentially move that dirt from where the developer is putting it in? Because that could change
That's not necessarily a use change, but that is, because in either case, it would be part of the rail corridor. It's the moving dirt from one part of it to another. It's not really a use change, but we would certainly have no problem stating at that meeting that that's what we intended to do.
Okay, so the only way, change of use, we could make it as polluted as we wanted if it's still for railroad use.
That's not what I'm saying. Provided that we manage it correctly, we will be moving soils, even if we're in the variance process, that are no more contaminated than the existing soils, and in keeping with the rail corridor generally. The northern region director who we met with said, I'm paraphrasing my exact quote, this is ideal use for a VRP site. We met on Monday.
What's VRP?
voluntary remediation program. They like the use, they like that it's contiguous to the rail corridor. They like that our use is essentially industrial, and that what we are talking about doing is we're not trying to do a bait and switch. We're not going to come back and say, oh, but now we want to build 40 townhouses on this property. A swimming pool. Or
That's very helpful. Thank you.
This just talks about, and Joe's really hit this. We continue to coordinate with DEQ. We want to make sure that we know what we're getting into. And I'll just look, here's a picture. This is a rendering of what the station's going to look like. The parking garage that's being built is behind that. The right of way is to your right. It really is a good looking station. More importantly, it's a station in a very, very underserved area. The developer has been fantastic to work with since we signed this framework agreement. DEQ has been very supportive. The community has been very patient. I mean, we're making good progress, and just seeing that parking garage go up on that construction camera is exciting. So we're in a good place. We just thought it was a good time to brief the board. We've talked about most of this, how we're managing our risks, and we've continued to manage our risks using Ms. Dorsch's words and the words that I hear echoing in my brain every night when I try to sleep. What's our worst day look like? Thank you, Mr. West. That's what we're focused on as we decide whether we perform.
Right. Is the cost of the station VPRA or
No,
it's the local?
no, it's
Developer.
private development.
Oh, it's a,
It's all private. It's all
okay.
private.
That's no, we keep talking about the developer.
There's no VPRA, there's no VPRA. This is all private developer.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, effectively, the developer will hand it over to Prince William County, and then VRE be responsible to maintain it.
Okay, so that's how it will work.
So
So here are the next steps as we move forward. If we get to a place where we've got an acceptable land transfer agreement and we're comfortable all these risks are mitigated, we would enter into that. Of course, these are the conditions of approval that I think we've talked about at length now. Again, just an update. Wanted to let folks know where we were. Yes.
Please excuse my geographical ignorance here. Is that the Potomac? What's the water?
That's the
It's the Potomac. Okay, okay.
before
Sorry.
run. The railroad goes right by the Potomac River.
Okay, okay, thank you.
In fact, if you've ever taken that train, there's a little restaurant that's right around the water that I think is closed now. It's closed now.
Thames River Shore is closed.
Think so.
They're looking to replace it with
Great place.
great place.
Great place. I'll just make it home. Not the safest place to get to when you
Just had to get there. Yeah.
Yeah, you need a life insurance policy.
a minute show that is not me. Any other questions about this?
just add, Jay, if you don't mind, because having to go through and explain some level of these opportunities, because we have no problems at VRE. I'll just offer to any member, if you want to come and do a reverse head end ride or something like that on the rail side, if you want to look at this general location and stuff like that, just reach out to me and we'll get you out there, because like me, I'm a very visual person and I have to see something like this to kind of tie all these other pieces together. So I open that up to anybody who would like to go through that area with us, again, from the rail side and even from the land side, and I'll be happy to set that up for you. If you could spend all day with us, show you the entire system.
So just in closing, I just wanted to say a quick word of thanks to Mr. Pittard, Mr. Costanuk, Mr. Pelletier, Mr. Constantine for finishing a half hour early so I could take a half hour too long and finish right on time.
Exactly.
That worked out well.
There you go. So with that, before we go into recess for lunch, what I would like to do is, since today is such a big day for this board, is we're gonna step out in the hallway. We're gonna take a few pictures of the board, but we will stand in recess and reconvene at 1 o'clock. And if you could